Hello, my friends. It's Sabrina from Tree of Life Inner Guidance. Wow. Wow. Just wow is all I have to say about February 2026. And I am recording this video for you all on February 1st, 2026. My background's a little different because I have stuff on this whiteboard that I'm going to talk to you about. So I am going to highlight I'm going to highlight all of the stuff that's going on in February, and then I'm going to elaborate on some of it. And I may have to do another video or two on it because there is a lot going on in February. And what I will do in this video as well is I'm going to talk about some hot points. So those hot points would be the signs and the degree points that are going to feel a lot of this stuff the most. And just to reiterate, the best way to get an accurate astrology chart is you do need to have your date of birth, place of birth, and your time of birth. If you don't have that time, you can do what's called a solar chart and put your sun on the ascendant and then plug the rest of the signs in around the astrological wheel. And you can use that for your chart until you get your birth time. If you can never get your birth time, then that's what you'll have to work with. Anyway, this is not any one specific sign. This is just what's going on in February, and it is a lot. Okay, so I'm going to take this cloth down and start talking about it. And because I am a teacher, that's what I've done most of my life. You're going to see me give these talks just like a teacher would give. And I think I'm just going to cover up these hot points right now for this moment. All right. Okay, so there are 7 things that I have listed, all that are going on in February 2026. Not just one or two. There's not just a new moon, and there is a new moon, and it's a doozy. But anyway, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about briefly is the full moon at 13 degrees of Leo. That is happening about right this very moment. I am coming at you from Phoenix. So I am on mountain time, and I'm happy to report it's sunny and 80 degrees here. Yay. All right, now what I want to call to your attention quickly with this 13 degrees of Leo full moon today is this is also affecting the opposing point of 13 degrees Aquarius. So these degree points, there are 0 to 29 degrees in each astrological sign. And it starts with the very first day of that sign, which I think Aquarius happened to have been January 20th. So January 20th would have been 0 degrees of Aquarius. January 21st, 1 degree Aquarius, and on down the line up to 29 degrees. And then it goes to 0 degrees of the next sign. So that's what these degree points are. And these are very important in your chart because they are hot spots at times. Some of you are not going to be affected by a lot of this happening in February, but the entire world is actually going to be affected by a lot of this because a lot of these transitions that I'm going to talk about are the outer planets, which are generational changes, and they don't happen that frequently. So those are what a really big deal is. So I have 2 videos up on the full moon in Leo. I have one video up that I put on the 29th of January, I think, and it gives the overview of the full moon. So if you haven't watched that, do watch that. Because this will make a whole lot of sense to you. You may have to come back and watch this video after you watch the full moon video. Then I also have a second video, which is the full moon in Leo by house and astrological sign. So if you go back and watch those videos, or if you already did watch those videos, you're going to totally understand why this 13 degrees of Aquarius, it's actually a few degrees later than that, but the full moon in Leo activated that opposing houses with Aquarius in it. You're going to see that that house where you have Aquarius in it is going to be activated again towards the mid 3/4 of the way through the month. Now, I joking, not joking, put up number 2 here for Groundhog Day, which is February 2nd. So I just kind of put that up there because ever since the movie with Bill Murray, every day seeming like Groundhog Day, it does kind of seem that way. Every day is Groundhog Day lately. But Groundhog Day is tomorrow. I was born very near Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. So I know all about Groundhog Day and Punxsy Phil, the groundhog. So if he sees his shadow tomorrow, that means 6 more weeks of winter. But an interesting little point about Groundhog Day is this was an early Christian ceremony called Candlemas. And what the clergy would do is go door to door and take candles along, and the size and length of the candle would kind of determine how long the winter was going to be, because way back then, that's how you saw light, and probably got some heat from making fires with those candles. So kind of fun fact about Groundhog Day. And then when the Germans moved into Pennsylvania, the Germans started using a hedgehog before they moved to the States, and then they switched to the groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil. Now, almost this exact same day, it switches over into the 3rd of February, is when Mercury retrograde shadow begins. I'll explain that as we get down further along this list of stuff. So the third big thing happening in February is Uranus goes direct at 27 degrees of Taurus. Now, I want to make sure I don't miss anything in my notes here. Let me just say that Uranus has been in Taurus, it seems like an eternity. I'm Taurus rising. Uranus has been in my first house now since 1919, it seems. But when you have a big outer planet like this going direct, it's like a barge turning around. So it's slowly coming to a halt and starting to reverse its course. Now, this is kind of a big deal. When I go to the hot points, I'll show you why. But let me also just say Uranus in the sign of Taurus, those are unlikely bedfellows. So let me just say that Taurus is a fixed sign, just like Aquarius is, which Uranus rules Aquarius. Taurus is a fixed sign. It's very stable. It's very grounded. It's very responsible. It likes stuff. I call it the sign of stuff, money, material things. A lot of people that have heavy Taurus in their chart are bankers or have stuff to do with banking. Mark Carney is a Taurus rising Pisces, and he's been in banking before he became the big cheese in Canada. So stability, routine, status quo. Just picture that Taurus is the bull, and the bull is out in the beautiful sunny grassy fields chewing on daisies, you know, just taking it easy, loving life. Also a sign of hedonism, you know, the fine wine and the cheese and the chocolates, all that appeals to Taurus. Now, Uranus, on the other hand, Uranus is the rule breaker, unpredictable, innovative, detached, looks towards the new, not what has been done forever and stable, like Taurus. It's future oriented, eccentric, can be erratic, unpredictable. Now, the tarot card, the Tower, always says Uranus to me. And I know that the Tower card is ruled by Mars and the star is ruled by Uranus. But every time I see the Tower card, that's how I picture Uranus. So having all this fixed, immovable Taurus energy covering this planet Uranus, like I said, that is a constant push-pull, which is going to change soon. All right. So we will come back to this Uranus thing. Now, on Valentine's Day, the best Valentine's Day gift in the land, said every Pisces with a big collective sigh around the world, is that Saturn is finally moving to 0 degrees of Aries and out of Pisces. I hear my friend in Massachusetts, Patty, going, "Oh, thank goddess." So that is a big deal. 0 Aries is a world point. That's the very first point of the zodiac. It's kind of indicative of spring and the vernal equinox, and it's new beginnings. And this is a global new beginning, but there's more to come on this because there's still more stuff going on. So now on 2/17, the fifth thing on here, there is a total solar eclipse. New moon. Whoops. Whoopsie. And so that was Uranus. I'm going to blame Uranus for that live and in person. As soon as I got done talking about Uranus, Saturn moving, there we go, boom. So where I was going with this is look at the degree point of this solar eclipse. This is 28 degrees of Aquarius. Okay, now this new moon, it is a total lunar eclipse, ring of fire. It's not going to be visible. I think it's visible in Antarctica or some crazy faraway places. But what I want you to look at is this 28 degrees of Aquarius. We have all these planets opposing the full moon in Leo. They are all moving forward. And now they're going to accumulate in 28 degrees of Aquarius. So this is why I said this full moon, don't you dare fall down on me, sign. So this full moon here in Leo, it had a packed Aquarian stellium opposing it. So now that Aquarius is getting highlighted yet again in a new moon total solar eclipse. So that is a big deal. We're going to talk about that. And then on the 20th, number 6, we have Saturn and Neptune both conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries. Now, I know Saturn went to 0 degrees of Aries here. So in theory, they are technically conjunct at this point, but they reach the exact minute of a degree and minute of conjunction on this date on the 20th. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit more about that once I finish this very last thing. And because, my friends, February isn't crazy enough, we now have Mercury retrograde starting on the 26th of February, and that goes through to the 20th of March. So you're going to have all this stuff moving forward into Taurus. Taurus in Uranus doesn't move into Gemini yet. We've got about another 2 months of it in Taurus, but Saturn's moving into Aries. There's a huge eclipse. Saturn and Neptune conjunct together. We already had a big full moon in Leo that's happening right now as I'm talking. And then Mercury goes retrograde just to royally screw everything up. So it's funny, not funny. So what I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to see if I can move this board here, and it could be a hot mess, but that's okay. Oops. I guess we're just going to leave it right there, and we're going to move this. There we go. All right. So let me pull you in here. Okay, so your hot points. Now, I have written up here, stay, plus or minus 3 degrees. What I mean by that is, so we've got a hot point here at well, we already had the hot point in Leo. That's going on. Watch those videos. I'm super detailed in those videos. How about that full moon in Leo? But so we've got this hot point here at 27 Taurus, 27, 28 degrees of Taurus. Also Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Those are your fixed signs. Now, this is a hot spot because not only is Uranus going direct in Taurus, but this new moon total eclipse is at 28 degrees of Aquarius. Taurus and Aquarius are square to each other on the astrological wheel. Squares mean that they do not get along super well. Okay, so all the things I mentioned about Uranus here, Uranus rules Aquarius. So all the things about Aquarius are going to be going on here with this solar eclipse squaring this Uranus in Taurus. So you have the innovative sign of Aquarius, future-oriented, unpredictable, somewhat unstable at times, likes to think outside the box, wants to be eccentric, innovative, very detached. So we've got this new moon. And then here is Uranus still in Taurus squaring this new moon. So this is the wild card in the mix. So if you have anything around 27, 28 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, this is going to affect you in ways that you might not even know. So forearmed is forewarned, or forewarned is forearmed, or however that goes. Forewarned, forearmed. Anyway, so now you know that you're probably going to feel this Uranus going direct, okay? And you're definitely going to feel this new moon. Now, what this could turn out to be, it's hard to say. It could be that something radically shifts that no one is expecting to radically shift. Where it's a new moon, you might just hear some things about this, something new, innovative, because there's a lot of planets here in this solar eclipse. It's the sun and the moon at 28 Aquarius. Mars is late. Mars is 19 Aquarius, and I think Pluto is 4 Aquarius. So the sun, moon, Mars is all squaring Uranus. So that's people's emotions and their egos and their action coming up against Uranus. So this could very well be a lot of the old systems that are not working. You're going to see the people really getting crazy about this because Uranus is, Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, is a humanitarian sign. It's for the good of all people. So I may come back and do a full video on this new moon. I probably will. And I'll talk a little bit more about Uranus going direct in Taurus. Okay, so the other thing I want to call to your attention here, I should use my magic selenite wand. There you go. So with Uranus moving direct and eventually into Gemini, it goes into Gemini on April 9th. So I've got some dates here, and I'm hoping that you can see those. And I'm getting up closer here for you. So we've got some important dates here. Now, you can look these up and you're going to know exactly what I'm referring to, okay? Now, the thing that I heard this morning, or I read this morning, what I do want to say here, this was a quote by Colette Baron-Reed. She said to stop outsourcing your power to a future that hasn't arrived yet. So because we've got Uranus involved here with all this Aquarian energy, which is also ruled by Uranus, these are all wild card things. So we're not quite sure what is going to happen, but there is an historical perspective of this. And as I was listening to Dr. Lena Rodriguez on Tarot Down Under, she was talking about these 80-year cycles. Now, I don't think she does astrology, but as I'm listening to her, I'm like, that's the cycle of Uranus. Uranus has an 84-year orbit around the sun. So what that means is it starts at 0 degrees of Aries and it goes around and it takes 84 years to get the whole way back around to 0 degrees of Aries. So Taurus is coming up on an approximate 84-year mark where the planet Uranus goes from Taurus into Gemini. So I looked up all those dates, and this is what with like in a year or two of this 84-year cycle of Uranus around the solar system. So we have 2026, and you're going to back it up to 1941. I don't think I need to tell you what was going on in 1941. You all know. 1858. You could probably take a pretty good guess as to what was going on in 1858. And even though it was before Uranus was discovered, around 1776, Uranus was discovered on the 13th of March in 1776, I think. Yeah. So 1776, you know what happened then. Gives a whole new meaning to the Declaration of Independence, doesn't it? And then 1689 was another important day. So these are roughly 83, 84-year cycles. So if this interests you, sorry, I set my alarm. That was supposed to be for 5 o'clock, so I stopped talking. I have another show. So write these dates down and go ahead and Google what was going on in these dates. So that's 1941, 1858-ish, 1776, 1689. There was a whole lot of discord. And we are kind of going through that right now. Okay, so next on deck here, Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries. Okay, so this is going to affect the cardinal signs. The cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. And 0 degrees of Aries is a world point, the cardinal world point. And I did talk a little bit about this, that it is considered globally a new beginning. It is the start of the astrological year, starts with 0 Aries. So even if you are at the end of Pisces by plus or minus 3 degrees. So at the end of Pisces, you're going to be feeling this 0 degree point. But if you are in early Aries around March 21st-ish, 0, 2, 3, 4, I'd even say 5 degrees, you're going to be feeling this. So what are you going to be feeling? So let's talk a little bit about Saturn, who I am one of the rare people that I happen to love Saturn. So what Saturn is about? Saturn is boundaries. Saturn is responsibility. Saturn is long-term goals. Okay? It's lessons. It's also rewards. It's tradition. It's the old order. So imagine the old order going into Aries, which is the maverick, the innovator, me first, ruled by Mars, the warrior, military connotations with Aries. So now you went from Saturn in Pisces, which Pisces is warm, fuzzy, and wants to dissolve everything and include everyone. Now you're shifting to Aries. So this is a massive energy shift out of out of Pisces and into Aries. Neptune, a couple of weeks ago, a week or so ago, made its shift out of Pisces into Aries as well. So now you have Saturn, the planet of boundaries, with Neptune, the planet of dissolving boundaries, both in Aries on a world point, marching side by side. So that is going to be super interesting. Okay, and then lastly, I will talk about this Mercury retrograde. Now, I'm probably going to do another video on this new moon, and I will probably do a video on the Mercury retrograde separately. There is a lot of information out there about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, meaning same sign, same degree point is what a conjunction means. So you're going to see a lot of that information out there already. And the other thing I want to say, there's so much to talk about. I'm afraid I'm going to miss stuff, but I'm going to miss some things, I'm sure, and I'll come back and do another video. So the big deal about this Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries is none of us in our lifetimes have ever witnessed this. We have never witnessed or lived through, or we don't even really have any information about 0 degrees of Aries, Saturn and Neptune conjunction. I think the closest information is it came to 2 degrees, but not exactly on the world access point of 0 degrees of Aries with all this. I mean, it's a global restart is what it really is. And that is the reason why you're hearing Saturn, Neptune, oh boy. So onward to the very last thing on here is Mercury retrograde. So I want to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde, and I think I can come down here and sit with you and talk about it. Okay, so I have the dates over here. Now, back 40 years ago when I first started studying astrology, I don't remember ever hearing about this shadow period. But, you know, it seems like in the last 5-10 years, now, maybe it's always been there and I just didn't know it, didn't focus on it. For some reason, it, you know, over my head and under the bridge. I have no idea. But the shadow period. Now, I have up here that the Mercury in Pisces shadow begins. What that means. And you'll hear it again, the shadow period. Oh, we have 10 weeks of Mercury retrograde, blah, blah, blah. So you understand what that means. We're talking about degree points again. So Mercury goes retrograde on the 26th of February at 22 degrees of Pisces. So as Mercury appears to travel backwards in the sky, that's why it's called retrograde, it is going to keep traveling backwards until March 20th. I know it seems forever and a day. It travels back to 8 degrees of Pisces. I think it's 8 or 9. I think it's 8 degrees of Pisces. So it travels back. So what's considered the shadow period is up here, right around Groundhog Day, which is tomorrow, we start the Mercury shadow period. So that means that Mercury tomorrow, or it might be late tomorrow night into February 3rd, is starting the period where Mercury will be retrograde backing up to. So you start to look at the Mercury retrograde when the shadow period begins. So the shadow period is 8 degrees of Pisces. Hey, you get down here and it actually turns retrograde on the 26th at 22 Pisces. By the time it's done going backwards, it stops its retrograde at 8 degrees of Pisces, which is where it's going to be in 2 days, 8 degrees of Pisces. Then it travels forward again and kind of runs over all those degrees that it backed up. So it starts the shadow at 8 degrees. Then at 22 degrees, it starts backing up. So it backs up to 8 degrees. Then it goes forward again. So it goes back over those degree points. So it goes back over 8 degrees of Pisces, the whole way up to 22 degrees of Pisces. Then it's finally out of its shadow period on the 9th of April. So technically, we're now within a day or two of entering the shadow period of Mercury retrograde. Now, what they say is try not to make any big decisions and do anything crazy and start anything new or buy any new electronics or cars or things like that. And they say to not, if you can help it, don't do it during the shadow period either. But you have to get out of bed in the morning and put your pants on and go to work. So you got to do what you got to do. But just during this period, shut up, alarm. So starting this shadow period, I apologize that my phone went off. I have an alarm set to make sure I stop on time. Anyway, the shadow period. So now we're going to be in the shadow period already, the whole month of February, technically, but the official retrograde doesn't start until the end of the month. So we're going to see all this new stuff going on. So we've already had our full moon. We have Mercury, shadow period begins. Then we have Uranus going direct forward motion. That's a big deal. Big outer planet, big energy. Saturn, another outer planet, heavy duty, one of the big dogs. Okay, goes into Aries. That's a whole energy shift, Pisces to Aries. Then we have this massive total lunar eclipse. And then Saturn and Neptune are together in Aries. And then we have Mercury retrograde. So we have all these changes going on that, we're going to be reverberating from. And then all of a sudden, boom, hit the brakes. Mercury goes retrograde. And now we have to review all this. So what Mercury retrograde really is, it's a time to reflect, renew, reconsider, reorganize, reboot. So after we just had all these big changes, it's I'm laughing. It's not funny, but it is funny. It's kind of comical that now we have Mercury retrograde. So it's like we just pulled out all the stops and then now we're shoving them right back in there. So this is going to be a super interesting month. So what I'm going to look at a little bit more here is I want to touch on the hot points a little bit more, because I'm sure you're watching this and you're saying, well, what does it mean for me? So these hot points are just degree points where all the action is. And anything that is like, for example, I'll say again, hot points for the fixed energy, the end of the sign fixed energy. So that would be the end of April if you're a Taurus, the end of August if you're a Leo, the end of November if you're a Scorpio, and the end of February if you're an Aquarius. The 27, 28 degree points, it could back up a couple of points on either way. So that's what we call the orb, the degree of orb, which this could be 24 degrees up into 0 or 1 degree of Gemini. So now these people are going to get activated. Okay. You've got Uranus going direct, and you've got a new moon full solar eclipse right on top of you. Okay. So if you realize that there's potential here to be a little edgy, to even though the fixed signs are not super flexible, um, the fixed signs don't like change. They like everything to be the way it is. So what you're going to have in your head is there are opportunities for things to not go as planned. Now, that doesn't mean it is going to be bad. It just means, like Colette said, don't, give up don't outsource your power to something that hasn't even happened yet. There could be some wild cards in here. Okay. You've got Uranus, the wild card planet, um, going up against a conglomeration of Aquarian energy, which is also wild card. Might be a little bit easier to digest because of that, since Uranus does rule Aquarius. All right. So I'm not in any way saying any of this. I'm not a fatalistic astrologer. I'm not a fatalistic person. I'm just saying that you would serve yourself well if you would allow for some flexibility, which is not the strong point of the fixed signs. Okay. And if you have a chance, look up these years. And I hope I'm not backwards on the screen. I'll have to look. I don't think I am. If I am, I'm just going to delete this whole video and forget about it. Okay. So that's 1941, 1858, 1776, 1689. Okay. Uranus is it's making its transition into Gemini. Those are years where part of this 84 Uranian cycle happened. Stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened. Okay. So now where we've got both Saturn and Neptune now soon dancing together at 0 degrees of Aries on that world point, new beginnings, could be all kinds of overhauls going on. This is going to affect the cardinal signs. So if you are 0 degrees of Aries, so that would be the very beginning of the sign. 0, 1, 2, 3, even 4 degrees of Aries. Okay, these points are going to be affected. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you're going to be feeling this Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So you just have to, think that, Aries is that warrior type energy. So I like to look at the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is how can you be a spiritual warrior? That's the connotation I'm going with. Okay, because Aries is the warrior. Saturn can be very materialistic, and Neptune is about spirituality. So think about how you can become or be a better spiritual warrior. So that's my positive spin on that. And then again, we've got the Mercury retrograde. So, and it's in Pisces. And I will probably give another talk on this whole Mercury retrograde thing and the shadow period, because there's an awful lot of stuff going on here on this month. And it might already be overwhelming. So let's see. I will just quickly have a little thought process of each sign here. So Aries, we already talked to you about this Saturn and Neptune coming on the world point. You know that is going to affect you. Early Aries. Okay. Next on deck, we have Taurus. So Taurus, Uranus has been making you crazy in the head for quite some time now. It's slowly making its way out, but on its way out, it's going to go direct. It's going to square this new moon eclipse. So Taurus, that is on deck for you. Taurus, depending on your degree, you're probably feeling this new moon also, because there's an awful lot of Aquarius energy, which squares Taurus. Okay. Gemini. Gemini, you're just kind of sitting back waiting for Uranus to get there. So there's a whole list of stuff to talk about once Uranus goes into Gemini, completely different energy. So, you know, Gemini, and you know this, you're all about communication and ideas, and you're chatty and you're curious and you're multidimensional. There's the twins, so hopefully you're balanced, and hopefully you don't have more Jekyll and less Hyde, or one way or the other. You try to see both sides of the story, and now Uranus is going into that, and it's going to add that electrical zap to all that Gemini. That doesn't happen until April, so you can kind of take a little rest here. Cancer. Cancer, if you're early Cancer, last week of June, you are going to feel this cardinal energy of the world point. Cancer is also a world point. So we have Aries and Libra and Cancer and Capricorn. So picture a big X, and those are your cardinal signs. Cardinal signs are the doers of the zodiac. So you're going to be feeling this energy. Remember, I said spiritual warrior. Some of you might not like that idea, or it might not appeal to you, especially if you're a Libra. Libra, you always want to be nice and sweet and balanced and fair. But you get a disgruntled Libra and you've got a warrior on your hands. Okay, so Leo. Well, Leo, you're having your full moon today. Congratulations. I did 2 videos on you. And Leo, you're going to feel all this oppositional energy from that Aquarius. So Leo is about sovereignty and personal power and love and heart-filled and drama and fun and creativity. And Aquarius is about the people and humanity and about groups and being eccentric and including everybody in the group. So that's that oppositional dynamic that you're probably already feeling today, depending on what degree of Leo you are. Virgo. Virgo is a mutable sign. I don't think you're getting hit, Virgo. Can you believe it? Take a rest. You'll have your chance. Although this Mercury retrograde in Pisces is opposite your sign, so you may feel that Mercury retrograde or have a few more challenges just because of that opposition from the Pisces Mercury retrograde. Libra, I just talked a little bit about you. Early degrees of Libra, you're the opposite sign of Aries on that oppositional axis. Aries is me, Libra is we. World point, 0 degrees. You're going to feel that oppositional energy. You're going to feel that spiritual warrior energy. Okay. Scorpio, you are the opposite sign of Taurus. So late degrees of Scorpio, you are feeling this Taurus opposition. You're also going to feel this new moon, this full solar eclipse. It is squaring you. There could be some headbutting along those lines, depending on where this new moon falls in your chart. If you take a look at the full moon video that I did, the one that has all the signs, it's going to talk about that oppositional axis of the Leo Aquarius, and that's going to give you some more information on how this 27, 28 degrees solar eclipse and Uranus is going to affect you. Sagittarius, you're not getting hit too much either, yay, except that depending on your degree of Sagittarius, this Mercury retrograde is going to be squaring your Sagittarius energy, depending on it goes through a wide degree point there the whole way from 8 degrees to 22 degrees and back, and then back over again. It's going to back up and run you over. Just kidding. So you'll feel that energy, Sagittarius. Capricorn, bless your heart. You just got all those planets out of Capricorn, and now you're going to have Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries beginning to square your sign. I feel for you. I really do. I have 6 placements in Capricorn, and I'm just sitting back saying, I'm just going to take a little break here for about 10 seconds before it all starts again. So the good news, I think, for Capricorn is the fact that Saturn is in Aries, or Aries. Yeah, Aries. Yeah, Saturn is in Aries. Oh, getting stupid here. Saturn is in Aries, and Saturn rules Capricorn. So it might not have quite the effect on you that it would have on Cancer, because if anyone can deal with Saturn energy, it is a Capricorn. Okay, you will get the job done no matter what anyway. All right, Aquarius, this is your month. Could you have gotten any busier this month? Seriously, could you get any busier this month? So I recommend for you, Aquarius, also to watch this Leo full moon video, because it talks extensively about that axis of Leo Aquarius. And it talks about this big stellium today in Aquarius that's opposing this Leo new moon, full moon. There I go saying new moon again. And then this total solar eclipse. If you are a late degree Aquarian, it's sitting right on you. And that is good news. Why is that good news? Because even though you're going to get a little static here, probably from Taurus, Uranus and Taurus, at least it's Uranus that rules Aquarius. So it won't be as the static that you think. There might be some heads butting. When the signs are square each other, or even opposites attract, but somehow they can blend it and make it work. Squares are like, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. But I don't agree with you. So it won't be as disagreeable, shall we say, because it is Uranus that's coming in there, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Okay, Pisces. This is your celebration time. You are finally, happy Valentine's Day, Pisces. Bless your heart. Saturn is finally moving into Aries. So you're probably going to feel like you're at the dentist office, and they are taking that big lead blanket off of you where they do the x-rays, because that's what Saturn can feel like to a Pisces. Saturn wants to create boundaries and have tradition and responsibility and everything just so, and it's the long haul. And Pisces wants to say, oh, I just want to be with everyone, and I just want everything to be roses and sunshine. Will you get off of me? Finally, Saturn is off of you, but you get the sweet joy of having Mercury retrograde in your sign for what will seem like forever and a day, from essentially Groundhog Day through to, what's that final date? The beginning of April. So just pay attention to that, Pisces. And Pisces does like to kind of retreat and be alone and hide and contemplate. And that would be a good thing for, well, we all don't have a choice, so we might as well learn to work with this stuff, because it's going to happen regardless. Okay, it's so how you deal with it, which brings me to how I wanted to end this video. It went quicker than I thought, so that's great. Is back in the early 2000s. I'm from the Boston area, about an hour north. I lived in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, so I'm a New Englander. But there is a radio station called WBCN, the Rock of Boston. And they had a gentleman on there named Daryl Martini. And if you're one of my New England pals and you're watching this video, you will know who I'm talking about. Daryl Martini was the cosmic muffin. Okay. And so after I just reviewed all these goings on here that's happening in February, which is going to be a little wild, more wild for others than every single sign. But what Daryl Martini always said at the end of his broadcast, he said, to quote, "It is a wise person who rules the stars, a fool who is ruled by them." And then he would say, "Over and out." So that's what I'm going to say right now. This was a very quick overview of February. I'll be back with a couple of other videos that I probably, like I said, I'll probably do one on this eclipse and probably one on Mercury retrograde. Great. But anyway, so it's a wise person that rules the stars, a fool who's ruled by them. I am Sabrina, Tree of Life Inner Guidance. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel. It does make a difference on YouTube. You have to have a certain number of subscribers in order to go to the next steps to do things. So if you enjoy these videos, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe and like the video. And all of these videos on my channel are for spiritual and entertainment purposes only. So thank you for being here. Over and out.